Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Office Hours With, coming to you live on LinkedIn for the very first time. With me, as always, Scott Elcherson. Scott, thanks for being here. Welcome to LinkedIn.
Oh, it's great to be on LinkedIn. Feels good.
And joining us this week, we have Dan Healy from Pickup Dan. Thanks for being our guinea pig on this LinkedIn live stream.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Excited to get involved.
Great. So figure we'll just start it off here with the most obvious question. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Pickup, a little bit about yourself? How did the company come to fruition, and where are you guys today?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. I was in the agency space for 8 years, ran a company called Prolific Interactive. We built primarily mobile apps. So we built apps for everybody from Amex to SoulCycle, Gap, Abercrombie, consumer brands kind of across the board. We were part of the Omnicom family and sold that company about a year and a half ago. So my world has always been the consumer tech, consumer product space. Mm-hmm. Pickup came out of really just this experience that I had as a sports fan. We recognized that there was a hole in the fan experience. We knew that, and this was even pre-pandemic, we knew that conversations that used to happen at class, in the gym, at the bar, in the stands, were starting to shift from real world conversations to digital conversations. And we recognized that there wasn't any kind of solid technology that sat between those two things. And so we recognized that, hey, if people are talking via SMS, via Slack, via WhatsApp, via social, let's create a platform that fills that gap, that gives them the ability to kind of quantify their opinion and to get credit for being right, or, more importantly, be held accountable for being wrong.
And we know there's no shortage of sport fans with hot takes and opinions.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's too funny. And I mean, so this new solution is rather new, right? Like you said, so it's been developed in the past year, 18 months.
Yeah. So we went live last summer, and we went live with a beta, right? So coming out of the mobile app space, it was really easy to test things in kind of a native experience before we built it to scale. And so last year we released a native app, and we released it with a focus on a specific geographic region. One thing that we've always been able to really track is the more specific you are about either the league, the team, the sport, whatever it might be, the more opinions you get, right? Like if you're a diehard Ohio State fan, you're going to have more probably well thought out and specific opinions than somebody who's a generic NBA fan.
Right.
And so we launched last year in Cleveland in native app form, and we kind of packaged it up. We had sponsorships from Topps and SeatGeek, two brands that got involved. And we released it leading into the MLB All-Star game last year. Saw awesome traction. We were seeing users come back and make 10 picks a day on the platform. And I know we'll show, what a pick is here in a moment. Yep. But we saw just like this incredible stickiness in the product. And, my co-founder and I said, like, if we're going to do this, it can't just live in the native app world. It should instead live where the fan opinions are started or are created. And that is in the blogs, in the content, on the podcasts and in the video. And so we built this platform to really live where the fan conversations are started and across the entire experience.
Well, absolutely. And I think we should just kind of get right into the product itself and kind of what it looks like. And so we have some slides here. I will pull it up for you, Dan. So can you walk us through the user flow? Because this is exactly what that user flow is of this product living within the native content platforms where somebody might be reading or consuming that sports content.
Yeah, absolutely. So in these slides, what you see is a website called NBAanalysis.net. And this is the type of website that gets 2, 3, 4, 5 million page views a month. What's interesting about the product and the platform we created is anybody from USA Today to a website like Full Scale Philly, who, that focuses on Philadelphia sports, can come in and grab these contextually relevant questions. And so this article is 4 dark horse trade destinations for Thunder star Chris Paul. The question, right, the content and the context of that article is, does OKC trade Chris Paul? And so you can see that's yes or no. It's a yes/no question. There will be an answer, right, at some point. You can see the branded experience at the bottom, and this is clearly a mock-up. When the fan makes that pick, what we enable them to do is put their phone number in, and when they put their phone number in, they actually get that receipt. They get a text message from us that says, "Congratulations, you picked Chris Paul is traded by OKC Thunder." And then from there, the call to action that we're really driving home is the ability to share it. And so they tap share or they tap copy, and the first thing it does from the mobile browser is it pulls up that share sheet. And the reason that's such an intriguing component of this is because it immediately, right, without having to write, hey, basketball hoops, like whatever your hoop chat is, you guys think Chris Paul is going to get traded. Instead, you just say, boom, I think Chris Paul is going to get traded. It's a branded link that drops in, and I think the second slide actually shows what that experience looks like.
Yes, let me pull that up real quick here.
Cool. And so what it does is it allows you, the user, or you, the fan, to drop that specific question directly into your text group. Mm-hmm. Those folks then tap into it and come back to the article. So there's this awesome value to the publisher where they're getting very relevant eyeballs on their site. And then there's a really cool and unique experience for the brands to really be associated with that conversation all the way through to the leaderboard. And ultimately, as soon as Chris Paul is traded to the Nets, then you get a text message saying, congratulations, you're right. And you move up the leaderboard, and the brand, the brand is associated with that as well.
Right. And so this leaderboard, which is going to be like the third mock in here, or the third screen, is that global? Is that based off regional locations? Like, how does that all kind of come together, or is that just one kind of universal? Here's the person that is the most right most of the time, which is probably a pretty good title to have in sports.
Most right most of the time.
Yeah.
I think that's what everybody's going for. Well, I guess two things to talk about there. One, the fan actually has a whole dashboard of picks that they've made, correct and incorrect, and so they can see how much they've gotten right and how many they've missed. The leaderboard is currently a universal per league. So NBA would be one, NFL would be one, NCAA. But we've got some things cooking that are pretty exciting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe later. I was like, want to break some news live on LinkedIn right now?
We can. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm happy to talk a little bit about it.
Hey, whatever you can share. This is a pressure-free zone.
Yeah. No, it's so there's this really unique component of competition in sports, and yes, it happens universally, globally. Yes, it can happen if you're participating in individual apps for certain networks, but the most interesting competitions are micro competitions. And those competitions exist across the people that you typically talk with about those sports or those teams. And so we've created a way to have those micro competitions. So if the three of us, I'm going to use the Nets as an example. I'm sure in the background you see all my Net stuff. So if the three of us are talking about, the Nets and the championship run they're about to make, we can feed in questions, and the three of us can actually have a competition, either season long, like game long, or in the playoffs, even series long, and we can be rewarded for it.
Well, all right. That's pretty exciting.
Pretty interesting. And basically you'll be able to set different parameters based on who you want in your group and what kind of content you want surfaced within that pick environment.
That's exactly right. So for me, I have conversations with friends that are Ohio State friends. The only thing we stay in touch about anymore is college football. We've got our Nets fan group, and then the Patriots and the Red Sox group. Those are all different people, and those are different competitions and different conversations, and even different depth of questions. And so the technology supports all of that.
Fantastic. Well, I think we should get into some of the questions around like the size and scale of the product today. So you mentioned that a lot of this is focused around being on the platforms where the sports content, is being published and written about. So where can we actually place this today? Like, I guess, what are those partnerships with those, or what are the different relationships and partnerships you have with different publishers as this product continues to grow?
Yeah, so we went live with this product at the end of July, and to be in the sports world this year has been a fascinating experience.
That's for sure.
We didn't know if football was going to come back, right? It was funny. I was looking back to some of the conversations when we first released the product, and we didn't know if the NFL was going to be live this year. What's cool is that the platform still mattered. The platform still worked because it was centered around fan opinions. And so even if the NFL wasn't live, there would still be conversations happening. But back to your original question, we went live with USA Today, specifically MMA Junkie, Celtics Wire, Sixers Wire, a group called NFLanalysis.net, and then Lax All Stars. If you remember, the lacrosse tournament was happening right at the end of July.
Yeah, that was one of the first sports to actually come back and do a competition before anything else. And then I think after that, then it was the NHL actually came back and played some games.
Yep, exactly. And so we launched with those three publishers and just wanted to make sure the tech worked, right? We wanted to make sure that everything was working appropriately, that the users were enjoying it, that we were getting engagement and all of those things. And it was, which was awesome. So over the past, I guess, week and a half, we've onboarded another 9 publishers. We've got 10 more that we're onboarding in the next couple of weeks. And what's so unique about this publisher network is it gets all the way into the USA Todays and the MMA Junkies of the world, which is worldwide fandom, all the way through to the Philadelphia sports fan with Full Scale Philly, right? Or the Toronto sports fan with Raptor Cage. And so you get these like hyper connected, hyper relevant fandoms that the only conversations that you can tap into that are this in depth exist in Reddit, and that's about it.
Wow. Yeah, Reddit, I would say, or Imager, or excuse me, Imgur, not Imager. I was told that is not the proper way to say that environment or that company. But that is super interesting. And I mean, when you look at the, I guess, availability today, like we kind of saw a little brand mock at the bottom, but is that the main way in which brands can kind of activate with this ad unit today, is kind of having their logo and sponsorship, embedded into that ad unit as people are engaging with it? Can they do anything with the SMS portion when it's actually shared back and forth? Like, what are those really, detailed brand opportunities that we can work with?
Yeah, so it lives in 3 areas. It starts on the embedded picker, which is iframe code that everybody is dropping directly into their content. And then when someone makes a pick, they end up on the pickup platform, and there's another opportunity for sponsorship there, not below the pick, but also on top of the leaderboard. And then finally, the really kind of interesting and cool opportunity that we have is through SMS. So when somebody submits their phone number, we have the opportunity not to give that information over to the brand or the publisher, but instead to send an offer through to that person. Sign up for this sweepstakes, sign up for this newsletter, download this app, whatever it might be. And because the offer is ideally hyper relevant to that user, we see pretty strong conversions there.
That's fantastic. And I think we have to follow up and ask a question around pricing. So how is pricing structured? And are there any minimums in which a brand needs to meet in order to run with pickup?
Yeah, so pricing it's a CPM model.
Okay.
We felt that at this stage it was an easy conversation to have, and we're being very thoughtful about the brands that we bring into this. We want brands that are thinking innovative as it relates to how they're going to spend their marketing or sports marketing dollars, right? So I mean, this year is such a tough year. I have so much empathy for people that are trying to represent brands that are in the sports space, because you invest heavily in a Super Bowl commercial and all the pre-production in a world where there may not be a Super Bowl. What do you do with those dollars that used to live in the stadium or around the field or in live event? That stuff it's so tricky to make the right decision there. And what we're doing is we're trying to live with within those fan conversations. We're trying to be innovative in the offerings, but we're also being very conscious of the fact that if these brands, if there are no sports, these brands need an out, right? And so we want to be very flexible in the way that we work with them, and that's why we want to be very thoughtful about the value they can bring to our users, the value they bring to the content, and in return, the value we bring to them.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna poke one more time, but
so then what role does the brand ultimately play in deciding what kind of content lives across these publisher pages?
So we actually have our own content.
Do they have influence over what questions are actually appearing alongside the content? Are they just manipulating the leaderboard?
I love that question. So can I give kind of a scenario, something that I've just been
break it down for us.
All right. So one of the things that I've been so excited about with what we're building, if you think back to March Madness, right? March Madness historically has been one of those, you fill out a bracket. The bracket is typically sponsored by somebody, depending on what platform it's on. But college basketball has changed so much. And so if you were to fill out a bracket, what used to be paper is now digital. And because there's so much competition in college basketball, there's actually a really good chance that your bracket is busted in the first 2 days.
Been there.
Exactly. And especially more so recently, right? When a number 1 seed is upset by a 16. We think that entire conversation and that entire competition needs to be changed. And this is going to come back to your brand your question about what brands can control. But ultimately, you should make picks on what's going to happen in the first day. And then you should make picks on what's going to happen in the second day. And it's not necessarily about, does team A beat team B? It's more about, I guess last time we had March Madness, does Taco Fall score 20 plus points, right? It's about trends in the news, in the headlines. And what's cool about that is brands can absolutely support that. They can feed that stuff in. They can say, hey, we want to ask the question, will Taco Fall score X amount of points? And then that can be complemented by an Instagram post that they put out there or a tweet that they put out there. And all of it leads back to this leaderboard. So they can actually, instead of just sitting on top of what's happening, they can move into the conversation and use their tone, whatever their brand wants to represent, to ask the right kind of question, with the right kind of dialogue and dialect.
Have you worked with any brands that have talent, especially maybe sports talent, or anybody in some of the leagues that you're surrounding? Potentially it's getting custom questions or doing takeovers from a player perspective.
No, so we've got a couple of those conversations going on right now, not just in the athlete talent, but also just in there's a lot of new sports broadcasters out there, and they've taken to Instagram to do that. That's super cool, right? Because they're not where pundits used to kind of sit on top of the sports universe and talk to fans. The effective ones now speak with fans and accept when they're wrong, and instead turn that into a more intriguing conversation. And because of the way that we've built the leaderboards, technically you could compete against XYZ talent.
Right. Oh, interesting.
Game, et cetera. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. And so one of the things I'm kind of curious about is that, when we were looking at the different ad units, that like the one example was a very yes/no question. Are we just limited to yes/no questions, or can we expand, to multiple choice? Is it more of a polling factor? Can it be open-ended? What are our, I guess, capabilities to actually craft these questions when it comes to, the format and how we answer them or interact with them?
Yeah. Multiple choice are actually the more popular ones, right?
Okay.
So of MMA, it's typically win, draw, KO, I believe. And so those are example. Or if you think of, who's going to finish first in the NFC, it lists out, we can list out 5 teams, something like that. Those tend to get a little bit more interaction.
Okay.
Open-ended, we don't have a solution for at this point. But what's kind of cool is if you think about, so say the question is, who wins the Masters this year? Tiger Woods, Bryson DeChambeau, someone else. Then you make that pick someone else. You share that with your group, and you say, lefty's coming back to win this year. I think a 50-year-old champion for the first time ever. And so all of a sudden, because of the kind of contextual component of it that's completely user generated, it becomes, you can kind of create a bit of an open-ended situation.
Right. That's super interesting. I'm always just curious. I'm just curious to know kind of, how that comes together, because, different questions create different answers and conversation. And, sometimes your point, a multiple choice question might be better than, say, a yes, no, or even something that's open-ended. And to kind of dive into a more media focused question here is that when you think about, measurement, how is all this being measured? Is there, moat pixels that are being implemented on there? Is it kind of just like impression based? Is it coming from the publisher that you're working with? Is it, based off of shares or interactions, through the SMS? What are the different ways in which we can measure these campaigns and these interactions with your product?
Yeah, so it's cool because it's an iframe. And so there's a little bit of a manual lift on the publisher side, but they see the value in it. And so we haven't had any pushback there. And because it's an iframe, we serve it up in our own unit. And so it's hosted across the pickup platform, all the way through into the share. And then because it comes back through that link, we can track it full circle. And so,
fascinating.
Yeah, so the share button, we can track that through. And then again, you're not going to make a pick directly in the chat. You're going to come back to the platform.
Got it. Okay. Super interesting. Very interesting. And I guess my one thing I was going to say, so when you say like when you come back to the platform, is that then you're coming back to the same publisher website from which the share originated from, or are you then being linked to like a owned and operated pickup platform or like website or destination?
Yeah. So we're giving credit to the publishers, and so when you make that pick on, if you make that pick on NBA Analysis about Chris Paul, it brings you back to the NBA Analysis site.
Okay.
But when you go visit your picks, right, when you see that text message and you go either check live picks that you've made, or when something happens, you go and you actually see the grade. At that point, you're on a pickup owned platform. That's where the leaderboard lives. That's where all of those things live. And so that's where we can feed you similar questions to try and get deeper engagement, sharing, and all of that good stuff.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry. I've been hogging all the questions.
It's all good. How long does it actually take these buttons or questions installed on publisher pages? So how many days are we able to actually go live with the assets?
Yeah, so Ryan, you kind of broke up there, but Dan, I think what he was asking is, what is the creative turnaround time? So from starting conversations with your team to actually being live on NBA Pickup, what is that timeline to get a campaign live?
Yeah, so we understand the sensitivity of this. If we're going to do something, let's get it done completely. And so turnaround time is very quick, right? If we were to have a conversation today, we could be live next week. If we were going to talk at the beginning of next week, we could be live in the middle or end of next week. So we can do that stuff very, very quickly. As it relates to the creative, fortunately, we do all have agency backgrounds, and so we do have some processes we can just drop right into place where send us the assets, we'll spin something up, send it back to you to get approval from the client, show you a mock-up, actually put up a live, not public page in some of our distributed publishers, package those up, get the thumbs up from the client, and move forward. So we've built the process to be as seamless as possible. with really the focus being like, let's get this out there. Let's get it in the fans' hand.
That's good. Are there any commitments that you want to make of 24-hour turnarounds? We always talk about in the stream. We're not going to hold them to any timelines that they say on the stream, because usually whoever comes on will promise something that their dev team in the back says you're crazy. We can't do that.
No, we want to be realistic, right? But
right.
The truth is, we'll work as fast as you can. The technology is stood up, right? And this isn't a when you're working with an early stage company, the people that are doing this, it's myself, it's my co-founder, it's Dave Scipione, our head of content. Like we're doing all the work. And
right.
So there is no red tape on our side.
Right.
We're in a position to be successful. So are we.
Right. Oh, fantastic. So we've covered a lot already in this very quick 25 minutes, and I wanted to just take a moment to ask you a question. Out of everything that we've kind of gone through, product overview, how you work with brands, the pricing, the turnaround time, the measurements, is there anything about the product that we haven't asked about that you think our listeners should know about?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think tactically, that covers a lot of it, right? I think our reach is broad and growing. I think if you really want to get into the unique opportunity with this technology, and we know that if we're going to stay competitive, then we need to do those micro competitions need to exist soon. Like we know that we need to be ahead of all of this. But if you want to think about like the unique opportunity that exists today, I think the story that we like to tell is if you go back to the 05 Masters and you think about Tiger hitting that shot, right? He hit that crazy chip shot that rolled all the way down the hill. And right at that last second, you kind of see the ball turn to drop in, and there's a Nike swoosh on that ball, right? And it was just like this incredible brand moment that you can't do any better than that from a sports moment perspective.
Right.
Associate Nike with that moment. And, our philosophy is that those moments happen every Saturday, every Sunday, every Monday, right? They happen all of the time, depending on what team you root for, or what player you follow, right? Like last year when Kawhi hit that shot to at the buzzer for the Raptors to go on, to the next stage. Tonight when LeBron puts up a 3 and knocks in a triple-double for maybe his last NBA MVP, like all of those moments have the ability to have a brand associated with them.
Right.
And what we are trying to do today is we're trying to create that. So when you make that pick, hey, LeBron has a triple-double tonight, and the brand is right there. You're looking at the box score and you see, hey, he's got 7 assists, 12 points, and 6 rebounds, right? And you're like, okay, I'm tracking. And when you track to see how you're doing, the brand is right there. And then he makes that 3-pointer and you get a text message that says congratulations, and you tap into it and you're like, I knew it, LeBron was going to hit it. The brand is right there, right?
Right.
And so that's like, that right now is this just incredibly unique opportunity for brands to actually live in the fan conversation and in these moments, because that experience for a Lakers fan is as cool as a diehard Aggies fan watching them upset Florida tomorrow or whatever.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, here at the lab, we always talk about these ideas of culture pops and moments to surround, and it can be difficult to kind of be around those moments that kind of come like a flash in a pan. And I like this solution because it is very turnkey, and it's a very very unique way for a brand to kind of surround those moments, like you said, and kind of take part in that fandom that might be difficult to kind of just do on another platform. And so, Dan, I want to take a moment to answer some audience questions here. We got a question from Ben Hone. I'll put it on screen. So, Ben, don't worry that you joined late. Come and go as you please here. But any plans to integrate sports betting onto the platform? What are your thoughts about that?
So sports betting is at such an interesting time in this country, right? It went live two and a half years ago in May 2018. POSPA was repealed, and all of a sudden states can make that call. New Jersey was the first to go. And now we'll see 10 states, here shortly, probably 30 in the next year and a half. The world that we live in is not directly in the sports betting space, right? But as you see, any major publisher, anybody involved in sports content, the spreads, the odds, the kind of push to have some action in the game or around the player props or any of those things, that behavior is becoming ingrained in the sports fan. And we're trying to satisfy that, not from a sports betting perspective today, but instead from a brand involvement perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So we will never be a sports book. That's not something we're trying to do.
Not going to go in the follow the path of Barstool Sports.
No, and Barstool's got an audience, and Barstool is monetizing sports betting because they've got the platform to do so. But what we believe is there's actually this massive web that lives between sports media and sports betting. Mm-hmm. And that web is conversations. It's social credit. It's rewards. It's being held accountable or getting credit for being right. So that's why we say you get a receipt when you submit your phone number. If you follow any Twitter sports betting, people share their receipts when they win, typically not when they lose.
Right.
So
yeah. No, that's hey. Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry. No, I think we might have lost him on that one. Ryan, feel free just to plug your question in the chat, and I can pull it up.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. But Dan, to your point, bringing a lot of accountability, and I think it'll just be fun. It'll be a fun way to just engage that fan base and the fandom around sports. I think I have about a few more questions here for you. And again, listeners, viewers, I guess because this is not a podcast, feel free to send us your questions in the chat. We'll bring them on screen and ask and answer whatever you'd like. But what about the audience? So I know we've talked about the sports audience, who they are, but do you have any early results of kind of the breakdown of who's using the service? Like, are you pulling information from the publishers that you're running with? Are you starting to kind of build out your own kind of demo and targeting and field male and female split? We're getting deep into the media questions here, but I'm curious to know how that's starting to develop and kind of who this person is that's engaging with Pickup.
Yeah, so we're still gathering that data. Having been live for 3 months, it's really going to depend. I think what's cool is we can expand our reach because for example, a couple of the new sites that we're working with have coverage on the WNBA. A couple of them are covering, college sports. If you think track and field, think swimming, think some of those things, which are really intriguing leading into the Olympics because the conversation is going to shift that direction. So, in a way, we can actually access a much broader audience because the platform can technically live everywhere. Our current user base is I think about 80% male, right in that 18 to 42 year old. So they fit the sports fan for the sites that we've been working with.
Fantastic. Well, I have one more question before we get into the final four here, but what are the plans going forward for the rest of the year? I'm curious to kind of hear about this product development. Are you looking to obviously expand the publisher network, I'd assume, but anything with social platforms, maybe an integration with TikTok, Instagram, something of that nature? Kind of how are you seeing things roll out for Pickup?
Yeah, the focus right now is absolutely on broadening the publisher footprint, right? That's going to be crucial. We need to make sure that we can continue to expand because then we actually have the ability to jump into new audiences and create just a more well-rounded product. We'll learn from different users. As it relates to social, So we started to explore some elements of that, right? If you think about, Snapchat, you can actually build on top of their platform, an iMessage app, and then you can do Instagram as it relates to the yes, no, and the polling type of technology. We're trying to figure out how we fit in that world. The focus, as I kind of alluded to, as it relates to the more innovative stuff that we're messing with, is going to be in those micro competitions. Getting that right is no small feat, and so getting that to a point where we start to implement some of this AI, and when when you're competing with somebody around a Buckeyes game, it can automatically jump into the database and pull out questions for that Buckeyes game that day, and open and close the competition at the right time. Those are pretty broad technical hurdles that we're trying to get over. And that's that's really our focus.
Fantastic. Well, with that is going to bring us into the final four.
Nice.
So thank you. I'm really liking LinkedIn Live. I have to say, there's a lot of fun toys that I can play with as I'm commanding the stream here. So Dan, the final four. These are the final four questions of the stream. These are the four questions that we get asked most often when we're talking to our media teams and our clients about new partners and solutions. And so first up, I will list them in order, and then feel free to answer them in that order as well. So the final four questions are: 1, what does it cost? 2, what is your size or scale? 3, what is the lead time for an activation? And then 4, why you versus a competitor?
Sure. So starting with the cost, again, it's on a CPM. It's on a CPM model, and it would vary a bit depending on segmentation. But again, we're going to be competitive as we work with some of these brands. We're being thoughtful about the brands that we bring on, and so we're trying to establish relationships with them, and not overcharge for this technology. We think it's more about the end user and less about the short-term dollars for us.
Gotcha.
Rolling out, again, we can move very quickly. It's more about how fast can you move and how fast can you get approvals. Our scale is growing daily, weekly at this point. Today we have access to over 100 million page views a month. Again, we're doubling our footprint in the next 10 to 15 days, and ideally we stay at that pace, continuing to grow and expand into new sports, new platforms, new independent publishers. And why us instead of somebody else? So many reasons.
Give us your top 2 reasons then.
All right. Well, one reason is that there's I haven't seen another place where you can actually live in the fan conversation and be a part of the type of things that fans are truly talking about, whether it be on Reddit or on Twitter or whatever it might be. So you're not going to find another solution that lives on a website all the way through SMS and then all the way back to that website. Nothing's doing that today. And then I think the other reason is, look, there's a lot of the publishers that we're working with, used to work at some of these large sports media companies. They were the talent, and they, because of the pandemic or even pre-pandemic, they were laid off or their job was eliminated, and they've created these sites because they truly care, and they've turned a hobby ideally into a profession. And so, by working with us, you're actually supporting these independent content creators, which is a really cool thing. It's a really cool thing for a brand to do today. And we pass this right along. We pass the revenue right along to them.
Fantastic. Well, Dan, it was an absolute pleasure having you on Office Hours With. Where can our viewers find you? Where can they find you on social? Let us know.
Yeah, best place to find me is on LinkedIn, Dan Healy. With Pickup, and you can get me on Twitter at the Dan Healy, and you can email me at dan@playpickup.com.
Fantastic. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on this week. And for all of our viewers out there, let us know if you have any questions. We'll be happy to follow up and funnel that along to Dan. So thanks, everybody, and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, Scott.